characterized by dry, dusty roads, dilapidated school infrastructure, and decaying health institutions. The story of northern Kenya has been one of years of marginalisation. But hidden deep within is a quieter story of billions that arrive but never get to the ground and the common mwananchi. Where is the money? The 2010 Constitution,
at exactly 10:23 a.m., the president made the statement that the country had been yearning for over 2 decades.
I, Mwai Kibaki, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Kenya, declare that the Constitution set out in a schedule shall be the new Constitution of Kenya,
which Kenyans passed enthusiastically to govern the nation, created funds that will channel resources to each and every part of the country to ensure an equitable trend, an upward trajectory of the development of the country. The northeastern counties have received billions of shillings from the equalization funds, from conditional grants, and from the equalization fund that was specifically created by the 2010 Constitution to ensure that those regions that have been marginalized since independence in matters development catch up in terms of road, water, education, and health. But a visit to the grassroots in the northern part of the country paints a grim picture, one of neglect and one where only leaders benefit from these allocations. A good number of students study under trees, and a larger part of the population actually has no access to clean water. And let's not even begin on the story about health. Majority of the shelves in dispensaries and hospitals in the northern part of the country have no medication. Majority of the hospitals have no equipment and even power. Majority of some of the parts of those counties have no connection to the national grid. Yet billions, since devolution, over 12 years ago, have been channeled to those areas to ensure that they at least catch up with the rest of the country in matters development. And our big question is this: where are the billions meant to fund development in northern Kenya? The laundering of the North. Money meant for development seems to be benefiting the leaders and the politicians more. It seems like the leaders in the northern counties of the country are the ones getting the most development from the billions channeled into that area. Characterized by tenders awarded to substandard contractors who do substandard work. Some of the projects cannot be even verified on ground. Majority of the money channeled to those areas is invested in the capital. You look at the politicians from those areas, donned in expensive suits, driving in expensive cars, investing billions in the capital in terms of apartment blocks, malls, and many other businesses. Yet, mwananchi on the ground in the northern part of Kenya keeps suffering. Wealth by development funds that is supposed to reflect in the north is actually seen in the skyline of the capital. When asked to account for the billions of shillings allocated to those areas, the politicians and leaders in the northern counties of the country reach for an all too familiar script, the script of marginalisation. Marginalisation is real. Of course, since independence, majority of those areas have been ignored. But let's be realistic. CDF was invented in 2003. It has been longer for over 22 years. Each constituency is allocated an equal amount of money. The only little difference is if one constituency has a higher population, they get an additional little amount to top up for the difference. But these politicians, when asked to account for the CDF money, when asked to account for the devolution allocations that have been around for over 10 years, they say they have been marginalized. They say they are being profiled. They call press conferences in Nairobi to talk of how their regions have been marginalized. They begin the talk of how other regions have been favored since independence. But we ask the critical questions. Each county has received billions. Those northeastern counties have received over 1 trillion shillings since the inception of devolution. And not to talk of the constituency development funds that have been funneled to those areas. Where are the schools that reflect this amount of allocations? Where are the water pans to provide clean water for the residents that matches and is consistent with the allocations of billions of shillings to those areas? Where are the billions allocated from the equalization funds to those regions since the inception of devolution to help them catch up with the rest of the country? Where is the money meant to improve health infrastructure in the northern counties of the country? But when you ask these politicians, they will accuse you of being tribal. They will call you a tribal bigot, and they will say that you're profiling them. But where is the money that they have been entrusted with to bring development to the northern part of the country? Can we see roads? Can we see hospitals? Can we see development that is commensurate with the billions allocated to those areas? Instead of claiming marginalization, come up with evidence of how that money has been used. Historical marginalization is real. The northeastern counties of Kenya have been marginalized for too long. But internal marginalization is the knife that inflicts the most painful wounds. Unless the residents of northern parts of the country learn to hold their leaders and politicians to account, the North will always remain 50 years behind in matters development. Not due to lack of resources and funds, but because the resources and funds have no home in the North. That is my unfiltered insights.